Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to take up the standard SS 710 comparative information, that is corresponding figures and comparative financial statements. Okay. Now the name looks very complicated, but this standard is actually very easy. So I will give you a proper backdrop of understanding it. Once the framework is clear, the understandability will be very simple. All right. Okay. Now, if you look at the heading, it says, I'm on page 15.47, SA 710, comparative information that includes corresponding figures and comparative financial information. Okay, now, in this standard, we are talking about that responsibility of the auditor, which is connected with the information which is used for comparison purpose. To give very simple understanding, you all prepare Schedule 3 financial statements, correct? For the purpose of accounting for examination point of view, you report only the current period. But if you understand the framework, you see that in every financial statement, as per the required financial reporting framework, you are required to give the figures of both current year and the previous year. Correct? So how will you prepare the financial statement? You'll have balance sheet, you'll have P&L, but every balance sheet and P&L will have two amount columns. One will be previous year, other will be the current year. Correct? So that is comparative information. One more way is that where you will not include the comparison as an integral part of the financial statement. Rather, you would keep as audited financial statement 2-3 sets of financial statements. That means current year is suppose 21-22. Then usually what we do, 19-20 and 20-21 figures come in our financial statements only. But then the other option is that you keep a complete set of financial statements of 19-20, or it could be any prior periods. You take 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. That will be complete set of financial statements. The prima facie understanding is that in India, comparative financial statements, we don't do it. Okay, we don't have it only as a practice. So what practice we have is, in the current year financial statements, we will show the figures of both previous year and the current year. So today, if you want to just have a practical experience of it, you can download any financial statement of any company, audited financial statements, and you will see that in the framework itself, you will see that current year and the previous year's figures will be given. So how you'll read, you'll be having the particulars, you'll have the note number, and then you'll have previous year and the current year. So this is going to be the integral part of the financial statement. This standard is telling what is the auditor's responsibility with respect to those figures which are given. Correct? So now when I'm going to do the audit of 21-22, so I'll be giving the opinion for the financial statements of 21-22. Correct? So, but in the 21-22 financial statements, there is also a data which is coming from 19-20, previous year's figures. So this standard is telling what is the responsibility of the auditor with respect to this figures of 19 and 20, which are reporting in the current year. Correct? Now, understand there are two ways. One is which I told you 20-21, 21-22, you're giving it together. One more way is a complete set of financial statements you're going to keep. So either you don't include as a part of financial statement, that you don't give previous year and current year. Instead of that, previous year entire financial statements, you'll be keeping it along with the current year financial statement. One is called as the comparative financial statements. Other is called corresponding figures. Okay. Now, corresponding figures are those which are integral part. So previous year, current year, when I'm reporting together, they are called as corresponding figures. What is comparative financial statement? I am doing the audit of the current period. Along with that, I also have other set of financial statements belong to prior periods that also I'm keeping along with the current, along with the financial statements. Correct? That is current year financial statement. One which is integral part, we call it to be corresponding figures. Separate set of financial statements, but we are keeping it along with the current year financial statement, we call it to be comparative financial information. Correct? How to remember? See, corresponding, RR. Correct? CORR, corresponding. So they are there in the reporting element only. RR, you can see, remember that they are there in the current year financial statement only, current year and the previous year. Correct? So they are integral part. All right. Whereas comparative financial statements with what? If I'm doing the audit of 21-22, then I'll also have the financial statements with me of 2021, 19-20, complete set of financial statements. But whereas when you talk about corresponding figures, complete set will not be there. Only the figures will be taken. Like for example, equity shares. So you'll have equity shares of the figure coming from previous year as well as the current year. Where? In the current year financial statements. Both of these are called as comparative information only. One is the corresponding figure, other is called comparative financial statements. Correct? Now, what happens is, first of all, comparative financial statements are shown or disclosed along with the financial statements, but they are not integral part of the financial statement. Correct? On the contrary, corresponding figures are the integral part of the financial statement, which are reported along with the current year financial statements only. Now, you give a logical answer to yourself. Suppose you are doing the audit of 21-22. So, in your financial statements, in the year 21-22, in the financial statements, you also have the figures of the previous year, that is 20 and 21. Correct? Now, tell me, are you going to give opinion on 2021 or only 21-22? The answer to that is your opinion will be restricted only to 21 and 22. Correct? So because you are doing the audit of the year 21-22, so your opinion will be only for the financial statement prepared for 21-22. You are not going to give any opinion on 20 and 21 reporting. Correct? But what happens is when it's comparative financial information, that means you're having 21-22 with you. Along with that, you're also going to present a financial statement of 19-20, 20-21. So in this case, they're not integral part. They're separately given. So here what happens, if you're doing the audit, no, you have to give separate opinion for these also. Got it? So you'll give opinion for this year. You'll also give opinion separately for the 2 years which are you're taking for comparison purpose. Got it? So if it is corresponding figures, if they're integral part, you will not give a separate opinion. Your opinion will be only for 21-22. But if suppose you're giving it for comparative financial statements, they will not be integral part. But if you're auditing, then you have to give a separate opinion to each of them. Got it? In India, we don't have the concept of comparative financial statements. We don't do that. We have only what corresponding figures. But because the standard is referring to all, see, understand all the standards are now trying to get in line with the international standards. That is the reason we have also given the weightage for comparative financial information also. All right. And that is the reason it is included. Okay. So simple understanding is you take a financial statement of 21-22. We are talking about comparative information. Comparative information can be in two types. One, they're integral part of the financial statement. So the previous year and the current year figures are given together. That is called corresponding figure. Correct? On the contrary, the other way of giving comparative information is with the financial statement of 21-22, you will have complete set of financial statements of the prior periods. It could be 19-20, 20-21, anything. They are complete set. So when complete set is involved, then if you're auditing it, then you have to understand, you have to give a reference to every financial statement opinion. Correct? But whereas corresponding figures are there, then you will not give opinion to both the periods, you'll give only for the current period. So in India, what we do is we will do the audit of 21-22. So when the companies give us the financial statement, in that financial statement, you'll have previous year and the current year also. But you will not give the opinion for the previous year. You will give only for current year. So that is a practical thing that you have to understand. Once you get the understanding of this, it is quite simple to follow. Correct? If you remember, we have done SA 510, initial audit engagement opening balances, where we know that when opening balance are there, you have a responsibility of checking the correctness of the opening balance. Similarly here, the current year figures are nothing but closing balance will be included in the previous year. So obviously when I'm doing the audit of the current year, so you will have some concern with the previous year figures also. With respect to what? You'll see whether they're copied and pasted correctly or not. Correct? Second, accounting policies, whether they're consistently applied. And if suppose there has been a change, then you will see whether the disclosure has been given correctly or not. So though you will not give opinion on the previous year, but don't you think you have a responsibility of checking the previous year's figures? Yes. Though you give opinion for 21-22 only, but your opinion will have some kind of information to be obtained from the previous year also. So that is what the responsibility of the auditor is. So in the case of comparative information, what is the responsibility of the auditor? Correct? Now this standard, when you read, you'll find it to be very, very simple. Okay? Now see what it is. So we are on page 15.47. We are on the page 15.47. That is SA 710 revised. Comparative information, two possible ways. One is corresponding figures, other is comparative financial information. Okay, now, what is the meaning? Comparative financial statements are those where amounts and other disclosures for the prior period are included for comparison with the financial statement of the current period. That means you're including them only for the purpose of comparison. But if audited, are referred to in the auditor's opinion. That means you have to give separate opinion for each of them. Correct? Opinion will be related to them. But when you talk about corresponding figures, comparative information it is obviously, where amounts and other disclosures for the prior period are included as what? Integral part of the current period financial statement and are intended to be read only in relation with the amounts and disclosures of the current period. And do you give separate opinion on them? No. You give opinion only for the current period. You don't give on the previous year's figures. So comparative information is of two types. Comparative financial statements, where if they're getting audited, you will give a separate opinion or you'll refer to the opinion. Corresponding figures you will take into consideration, but you will not give a separate opinion for it. Corresponding figures will be integral part of the financial statement. Comparative financial statement will be completely shown separately. They're only for the purpose of comparison. Okay, then audit reporting. When you talk about comparative financial statements, auditor's opinion refer to each period for which financial statements are presented. So you are going to have opinion for every period. Like for example, 21-22 is the financial statement you're auditing. That is the current year. Suppose you're taking for comparison the previous 3 years financial statements. So your opinion will be respectively given for each of the 3 years, which are taking into consideration. But when you talk about corresponding figures, auditor's opinion on them will only refer to current period only, nothing to be done with the previous years. Got it? Then consideration of other essay, I told you 510 has to be considered if it is done by the previous auditor. The previous financial statement is done by previous auditor, or if it is not audited only, then 510 will be included. If the auditor has a prior period financial statement, that means he only has done the audit, then SA 560 subsequent event should be taken into consideration. Event occurring after the balance sheet date. Correct? You have done the audit, but there could be a possibility that after the report also is given, events could be there. Subsequent event are of two types. So don't you think this year when you're doing the audit again, you should give due regard to the subsequent events also? Yes. So you have to give regard to both 510 and 560 both together. Correct? Then most important is the audit procedure. Please mark it important. Now, financial statements include comparative information required by FRF, and such information is classified appropriately. So you should see whether the financial reporting framework is requiring you to present the comparative information. As I told you, in India, we don't have comparative financial statements. We have only the corresponding figure. So Schedule 3 is one of the financial reporting framework, and that framework tells that the previous year and the current year figures have to be shown together. So as per the required financial reporting framework, you are required to show the comparative information. And that is the reason first the auditor will see whether the comparative information is given or not. So your previous year, current year figures are given or not. Correct? First thing is that if current year, previous year figures are given, then in that case, what you will do? See that the comparative information agrees with the amounts and other disclosures presented in the prior period. In simple language, whether they're copied and pasted correctly or not. So previous year's closing balances have to be current year opening balances. So when you do the audit, you check the books of accounts. So with respect to previous year, you will see that those closing balance have actually become the opening balance of the current year or not. So you will see whether the previous years are actually agreeing with what? The prior period or not. The amounts are matching or not. Then accounting policy is very important. The fundamental accounting assumption says what? Consistency. That means the accounting policies which were followed previous year should be appropriately and consistently applied even the current year. So with respect to that, you will see the previous accounting policies are what and whether they have consistently been applied. Also, we know AS1 says that if you're not consistently applying, you have to give a disclosure. So if suppose in the current year, you have changed the accounting policy, then in that case, you have to see whether proper disclosure has been done in the financial statements or not. So these things you have also studied in 510, if you remember. Correct? Same procedures here also. So when you have previous year's figures given in the financial statement, which is required by the FRF, in that case, you have a duty towards the previous year's figures. You will see whether they're copied and pasted correctly. Also, you'll see about the accounting policies. If they're consistent, if they're not consistent, proper disclosure has to be given. Correct? Then, obviously, you'll be very clearly maintaining professional skepticism because there could be a possibility that there are some kind of misstatements in the opening balances, carry forwarding and on. Correct? In case there is a doubt as to material misstatement in the comparative information, he shall perform additional audit procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding existence of the material misstatement. So suppose when you were doing the checking of the opening balances, you came across a misstatement. So obviously, are you going to keep quiet telling it belongs to previous year? Why should I check it? Already report is given of the previous year. Why should I take tension now? No. Once you come across any misstatement, which you can feel is connected to the previous year, there could be a prior period misstatement. Okay, so in that case, will you be alert? Yes. So in that case, you cannot ignore it because if previous year is wrong, current year could be wrong because previous year only becomes the opening balance of current year. So you have to apply additional procedures and ensure that these misstatements are resolved. And if not resolved, does it have an impact in the current year? Because you are going to give opinion on the current year, which you have to be very clear about. Correct? Then obtain written representation for all the prior periods referred to in this opinion. Also for any financial, prior period items separately disclosed in the current year profit and loss statement. See, what happens is previous year's financial statements are prepared by the management. So that written representation you have to take. Also, if you're talking about, see, sometimes what happens, there could be a misstatement in the prior periods, which is rectified in the current period. So we do PPIs, prior period items, and we bring it in the current year period for rectification. These are done by the management. And when management is doing the rectification, you have to obtain what? Written representation from them. Correct? Then. Now comes to prior period financial statements. Suppose your prior period financial statements were audited by another auditor. So somebody else has done the audit and now you are doing the audit. Even if you are doing the audit, don't you think you have a responsibility for the prior period also? Yes, because prior period items only become the opening balance of the current period. So in that case, what you will do, in your reporting, you will include a paragraph called as other matter paragraph. And in that, you will be telling the people that the previous year's financial statements were audited by another auditor. Also tell what if the opinion was given by them. And also tell that what was the date of that audit report. Reason is very important because, see, you are including some kind of information in your audit report on which you are not giving opinion. And if you're not giving the opinion, it is still included as a part of financial statement. Don't you think this information has to be given to the users? When I taught you SA 706, I told you that 706 has two paragraphs, EOM and OM. OM talks about those responsibilities of the auditor, which the auditor tells is important for the people to know to understand his work. So don't you think you have to tell the users, look, my audit was restricted only to the current period. So this was audited by some predecessor auditor. His audit report gave that opinion and the date of that audit report. So you'll include in which paragraph? Other matter paragraph. Now suppose in the prior period financial statement, there was a material misstatement identified, because of which, there was kind of a modified opinion given. This year, the matter is still unresolved. Don't you think now this is going to impact your current year financial statements also? Yes. So in that case, don't you think you'll communicate this matter to the TCWG and the management? Yes. That means previous year, there was a misstatement because of which the predecessor auditor gave a modified opinion. Now you are in the current period and this part is included in your current year financial statement as comparative information. So when it is shown as a comparative information, don't you think you have a responsibility over it? Yes. So in that case, you have to see whether the matter is resolved or not. And if the matter is still not resolved, you have to communicate appropriately to the management and DCWG. This will also impact your reporting requirements. Correct? You could also end up giving a modified opinion. All right? Then. Also, one important point, request the predecessor auditor about this matter. Okay, because he has given unmodified opinion, thinking things were correct. But you came across a material misstatement. So you have a duty to inform him also. Correct? Then, what if the previous year financial statements were unaudited? So in that case, you will have in the other matter paragraph that those were unaudited. But tell me, if they're unaudited, do you relieve your responsibility that you will not be responsible? No. Even then, as if 510 tells you, even if they're unaudited, you will still be responsible to check the opening balances. You will see whether they're properly carried forward or not. If there is material misstatement existing, don't you think it is your responsibility? Yes. Correct? Then, in case of comparative financial statements, see, prior period financial statement, basically we talk about corresponding figures. Here and corresponding figures in India are practiced. Comparative financial statement in India, we don't have it on. Audit opinion should refer to each period for which financial statements are presented and on which opinion is expressed. If the opinion on the prior period financial statement expressed in the current period is different from the opinion expressed in the relevant prior period, give reason for the difference in the other matter paragraph. Meaning is what? Financial statements when you're taking, when I'm talking about not corresponding figure, comparative financial statements I'm talking about. That means when I'm doing the audit of 21-22, I'm also showing a presentation of 2021, 19-20 also along with it for the purpose of comparison. But when I keep a complete set of financial statements, I am required to give opinion on both of them. So there could be a possibility that previous year also the opinion was same. This year also I'm giving the same, then no problem. But suppose previous year, somebody else did the audit and they had given modified opinion. And that matter is still unresolved. So now the current year, obviously I'll be giving a reference to that there was a material misstatement which was unresolved. Correct? And suppose there is a possibility that you gave unmodified opinion in the previous year. And later on this year, you're finding out some modification, some kind of material misstatement. Don't you think this year you have to inform the users that though we gave last year unmodified opinion, we still believe there is a misstatement identified which is unresolved. Don't you inform this? Yes. So you will inform this in the other matter paragraph. All right. So they say audit opinion shall not, audit opinion to refer to each period for which the financial statements are presented and which opinion is expressed. If the opinion on the prior period financial statement expressed in current period, that means when I'm giving full set of financial statements, current year also have to give opinion on that, is different from the opinion expressed in the relevant prior period, give reason for the same in other matter paragraph. That means last year, either you have done or somebody else has done, they gave unmodified opinion. For that same financial statement, this year I'm giving true and fair view. So in that case, there's a difference. So this difference I have to report where? Other matter paragraph. Understand this, it looks very complicated because in India, you have never seen it only. In India, we see only corresponding figures. We'll see previous year, current year, where the auditor will do the audit only for the current year and give the report for the current year. And 510 you'll apply to check the previous year figures. So comparative financial statements in India, we don't have it in practice. So you might find it a little difficult. But only thing you remember, if you're taking entire set of financial statement for comparison purpose, then you have to give separate opinion for each of them. And if that opinion is mismatching with the previous year audit conducted, then in that case, you give it in the other matter paragraph. Correct? Then reporting corresponding figures. Now, corresponding figures becomes very important for us because in India, we have corresponding figures reporting only. Audit opinion shall not refer to corresponding figures. Now, first of all, we know when corresponding figures are given, that is previous or current year figures are given, your report will be only connected to the current year. So your opinion is concerned only with the current year. But sometimes you have to refer to the prior period also, previous year also. But when? When auditors report in the prior period financial statement was modified and the subject matter for the modified opinion is still unresolved. That means previous year, there was a material misstatement identified. As per the management's requirement, they have to resolve it. They have to rectify it. This year also, the mistake is still continuing. That means if previous year mistake was there and the mistake is still not resolved, that means current year also the mistake is having an impact. Because the previous year financial statements are current year opening balances. That means current year also what will happen? Things are wrong. So don't you think you also will give a modified opinion? Yes. So in that case, you will refer to the prior period item. Correct? Then, when the auditor obtains audit evidence with respect to, now what is happening here? In second situation, when you are going to refer to the previous year is, suppose previous year you have done the audit, you could not find out the material misstatement, so you gave unmodified opinion. This year, when you were doing the audit, you came across something which is an indicator that previous year there was a misstatement. Now tell me, previous year there was a misstatement which you did not identify and you give modified opinion. Now current year, because this misstatement is identified and still it is unresolved, don't you think this opinion of yours of current period will change? But this opinion of the current period is changing because of the misstatement which belongs to the previous year. So don't you think you are going to refer to the previous year now? Yes. So only two circumstances where in the corresponding figures, we are going to give reference to the previous year's figures. One, where previous year something was found out, which is still unresolved. Second, when previous year you could not find out, but this year you're finding out. Because of that finding out, you're going to give a modified opinion. In both these cases, only we are going to refer to the corresponding figures. Otherwise, we will not refer to the corresponding figures. Okay, now, some students might have some kind of, a little bit of problem in understanding. So I'll just give a simple way once again for you to get the overall concept. We are talking in this audit standard that when the audit is performed, there is going to be some information which is kept for comparison purpose. Some are required by the FRF, like for example, Schedule 3, which tells very clearly that when you are doing the financial statements of the current period, by the financial reporting framework itself, you are required to give the previous year's figures as an integral part of the financial statement. That we call as corresponding figure. These corresponding figures, we do not have any responsibility to give opinion on that. That means we as the auditors will give opinion only on the current year. But obviously, only because we are giving opinion on the current year, we are not relieved with a responsibility to check the correctness of the previous year's figures. So this is our responsibility towards the comparative information, which is shown in the form of corresponding figures, which is integral part of the financial statement. Correct? Second way, which is not practiced in India, is giving comparative financial information. That means complete set of financial statements will be given of the prior period. So here what happens is, the auditor, while doing the current year audit, he will give individual opinions for all the financial statements that he has taken into consideration. So if I'm doing the audit of 21-22, and if I'm taking the comparison of the financial statement of 2021, 19-20, 18-19, if three complete sets I'm taking, I will give opinion individually for all the three financial statements again. Got it? Now in that case, what happens is, in corresponding figures, I will give opinion only for the current year. In comparative financial statements, I'll give opinion for all the periods which I've taken for comparison. Okay? Now, corresponding figures, you will be not referring absolutely, but you will refer only in two situations where, if suppose in the previous year, audit was conducted and a modified opinion was given, and the reason for modification is still not resolved. So obviously, current year also you'll give a modified opinion, but the reason for modification belongs to the prior period. So here the reference will go to the previous year. Or the audit was conducted for the previous year, but a material misstatement was not identified. But now in the current year, you identified it, because of which you are going to now tell, we are giving a modified opinion because of a misstatement which is still unresolved, which belongs to the previous year. Correct? So that's the only places where you are going to give a reference to the current corresponding figures to the previous year. Prior period financial statements, you always have to give an opinion. But there could be a possibility that last year the audit was conducted. This year again you're going to give opinion. There could be same or there could be mismatch. If mismatch is there, then in the other matter paragraph, you're going to give the difference of opinion that is there. Also, suppose if the previous year financial statements were audited by some other auditor, or if they were unaudited, this information you have to give in the other matter paragraph. That is the basic understanding of the corresponding figures. Okay. For examination point of view, this point becomes very important. That is audit procedure and the prior period financial statement, and the last paragraph, reporting regarding corresponding figures. All right. And they've given you illustrations on page 15.48 and 15.49. Once you go through it, you'll get a crystal clear understanding. If there is a doubt regarding the standard, please get back to me. I'll clear it immediately. All right. One more thing is you can either mail it through sir to me, or you can actually, if you're coming to the academy for a preparation, you can meet me in person and get the doubts clarified. I'll be happy to help all of you. All right. Yes. Thank you.